The key wouldn't turn properly in the lock, and Naomi stood there on the front porch of her childhood home, struggling with the stubborn mechanism while her suitcase sat at her feet. She'd cut her business trip to Houston short by 2 days, eager to surprise her family for Sunday dinner. The promotion she'd just secured as senior vice president meant a substantial raise, and she'd planned to share the good news with everyone she loved. The lock finally gave way, and Naomi pushed open the door as quietly as possible, already imagining their shocked faces when she walked into the dining room. The house smelled like her mother's pot roast, the special recipe she only made for important occasions. Strange, since nobody knew she was coming home early. Voices drifted from the kitchen, followed by laughter. Naomi smiled, setting her suitcase down gently in the foyer. She'd take off her heels and sneak in to surprise them. But as she bent to unbuckle her shoes, her mother's voice rang out clearly through the archway. "I'm telling you, we need to be more careful about how much we ask for at once. We don't want the wallet to realize what's happening." More laughter erupted. Naomi froze, one shoe in her hand. "Mom, please," her sister Brianna's voice chimed in, dripping with amusement. Naomi's too busy trying to prove herself at that company to notice anything. Besides, she loves feeling needed. It makes her feel important. "The wallet with legs," her brother Jerome added, and the entire table burst into laughter. "That's what she is. A wallet with legs. And the best part? She actually believes we care about her boring finance job." Naomi's hand gripped the banister. Her heart hammered so loudly she was certain they'd hear it in the kitchen. She should walk in there. She should confront them. But her legs wouldn't move. "Be fair now," her father's deep voice cut through the laughter, and for one desperate moment, Naomi thought he might defend her. "Your sister works very hard." "Thank you, Daddy," she thought, tears already forming. "Hard enough to keep funding all of us," he continued, and the relief shattered like glass. "Jerome, how much do you need for that car you wanted?" "30,000. I figure I'll tell her it's for business equipment. She always falls for the business angle. Thinks she's helping me become successful like her." The contempt in Jerome's voice was a knife between her ribs. "And I need at least 15,000 for my Europe trip," Brianna announced. "I'll say it's for professional development or something. She eats that up." "Don't forget my roof repair," their mother added. "Though that's legitimate." "Well, the roof is fine, but the kitchen could use remodeling. 50,000 should do it." Naomi backed away from the archway, her hand over her mouth to muffle any sound. The expensive heels she'd removed dangled from her fingers. These were the shoes she'd bought to celebrate making 6 figures. The shoes she'd been so proud of until her mother commented that they were showing off, and reminded her that family should come first. "How much has she given us total, you think?" Brianna asked, genuine curiosity in her tone, as if discussing the weather. "I stopped counting after 500,000, Jerome replied. "But who's keeping track? It's not like she has anything else to spend it on. No husband, no kids, no real life outside that office. We're doing her a favor, really giving her purpose." The laughter that followed was the final nail in the coffin of Naomi's naivety. She picked up her suitcase as silently as she'd set it down. Her hands shook as she opened the front door, praying it wouldn't creak. It didn't. The universe granted her that one small mercy. Outside, the autumn air hit her face, cool and sharp. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Beautiful. How many times had she rushed home from work, missing sunsets like this, because someone in that house needed something urgently? How many times had she canceled plans, postponed dreams, sacrificed her own comfort because family came first? Her car sat in the driveway where she'd left it, packed with gifts from Houston. A designer handbag for her mother. The latest smartphone for Jerome. Concert tickets for Brianna and her father. All purchased with love, with the joy of someone who believed she was cherished. She loaded her suitcase into the trunk, moving on autopilot. The gifts could stay. Let them find them eventually and wonder when she'd been here. Let them realize she'd heard everything. But no, that would give them warning. That would allow them to prepare their excuses and manipulations. Naomi took a breath and pulled the gifts out, setting them on the passenger seat. She'd return them. Every single one. As she drove away, she didn't cry. The tears would come later. Right now, her mind was too busy calculating. 8 years. She'd been supporting them for 8 years since landing her first real job out of college. Every promotion meant more requests. Every raise meant higher expectations. She'd missed vacations, worked holidays, picked up extra projects. All to ensure the money kept flowing to the people who saw her as nothing more than an ATM. The wallet with legs. At a red light, Naomi caught her reflection in the rearview mirror. She barely recognized the woman staring back. When had she become so tired? The dark circles under her eyes told stories of sleepless nights spent worrying about other people's problems. The tension in her jaw spoke of stress she'd accepted as normal. She was beautiful, everyone said so. You'd be married by now if you focused less on work, her mother always said. As if Naomi's single status was a choice rather than a consequence of having no time or energy for her own life. Every spare moment went to family obligations. Every spare dollar went to family needs. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother, "Are you coming for dinner? I made your favorite." The manipulation was so smooth, so practiced. They knew exactly how to keep her hooked. Naomi's fingers hovered over the keyboard. The old her would have apologized profusely, explained the work situation, promised to visit soon. The old her would have felt guilty for disappointing them. But the old her had died in that foyer. Naomi deleted the message without responding and kept driving. She didn't know where she was going yet. Away. That was enough for now. Away from that house, those people, that version of herself who'd been too blind or too desperate for love to see the truth. The city lights stretched before her as she merged onto the highway. Somewhere in this city was the life she should have been living. The life she would have lived if she hadn't been so busy being everyone else's solution. That life was still possible. It wasn't too late. But first she needed to know exactly how bad the damage was. She needed numbers, facts, evidence. Then she needed a plan. Because if her family thought she was just a wallet with legs, they were about to discover that this wallet had a brain, and she was done being used. Naomi pulled into a hotel parking lot. A nice one, the kind she'd always thought too expensive for a simple overnight stay. The kind she'd avoided because saving money for family emergencies was more important than personal comfort. She checked in, took the elevator to a room on the 8th floor and finally let herself cry. She cried for the years wasted. For the love that was never real. For the daughter, sister, and person she tried so hard to be, never realizing she was only valued for her paycheck. When the tears stopped, Naomi opened her laptop. Her bank account login screen glowed in the dim light. It was time to face the numbers. Time to see exactly what being a wallet with legs had cost her. But more importantly, it was time to make a plan. Because they'd made one crucial mistake in their mockery and manipulation. They'd assumed she'd never find out. They'd assumed she'd never fight back. They'd assumed wrong. Naomi didn't sleep that night. She sat cross-legged on the hotel bed, surrounded by her laptop, tablet, and phone, with 8 years of financial statements spread across the spreadsheet on her screen. Each entry was a memory. Each transaction was a lie she'd believed. She started with the beginning, fresh out of college, her first real paycheck as a junior analyst. She'd been so proud, so eager to share her success with the family who'd supported her through school. Except, as she now scrolled through those early statements, she realized even that narrative was false. She'd put herself through college with scholarships, student loans, and 3 part-time jobs. Her family's support had been emotional at best, and even that was questionable now. The first transaction stood out, $5,000 to her mother. The note she'd written to herself said, "Mom's medical bills." Naomi closed her eyes, remembering her mother's tearful phone call about how insurance wouldn't cover a necessary procedure. How scared she'd sounded. How Naomi had transferred the money immediately, eating ramen for 2 months to make up the difference in her tight budget. She opened a separate tab and searched for her mother's name in public records. Property ownership. 3 rental properties purchased 7 years ago. Right around the time of those medical bills. Naomi's stomach turned. She kept digging. Jerome's first request, $10,000 for business startup costs. "I'll pay you back as soon as the business takes off," he'd promised. It never did, according to him. Failed venture after failed venture, each requiring fresh capital that never materialized into returns. But Naomi found his business registration. A successful IT consulting firm that had been operating profitably for 6 years. The same business he claimed had never gotten off the ground. Transaction after transaction, lie after lie. Brianna's student loan help that totaled $45,000. Brianna, who apparently had a trust fund from their late grandmother that she'd never mentioned. Her father's gambling debts, always presented as one-time emergencies, appeared with suspicious regularity every few months. By 3 a.m., Naomi had created a detailed spreadsheet. The total made her physically ill, $847,000. $847,000 over 8 years. Money that could have been a house, retirement savings, travel, experiences, investments in her own dreams. Instead, it had funded their lies. But it wasn't just the money. As dawn broke through the hotel windows, Naomi pulled up her old calendars and started a new document. This one-track time. Missed opportunities. The job offer in New York she turned down because moving would mean she couldn't help her family as easily. The promotion she delayed accepting because it required travel, and what if they needed her? The relationships that fizzled because she was always canceling dates for family emergencies. She remembered Nathan, a kind architect she dated briefly 3 years ago. He'd wanted to get serious, but Naomi could never commit enough time. There was always a family crisis. Always someone who needed her immediately. He'd finally said, "I feel like I'm competing with your family for your attention and I'm losing." She'd let him go, thinking he didn't understand how important family was. He'd understood perfectly. He'd seen what she couldn't, that she was being used. The memories came flooding back now, viewed through a new lens. Every birthday of hers that passed with minimal celebration because someone else always had something more important happening. Every achievement she downplayed because drawing attention to her success made her family uncomfortable. Every time she'd apologized for not doing enough, not giving enough, not being enough. At 6 a.m., Naomi ordered room service, a full breakfast spread that cost $75. The old her would have felt guilty about the expense. The new her barely blinked. She'd given them nearly $1 million. She could buy herself breakfast. While she ate, she made a list of every payment, every excuse, every manipulation tactic. Her mother's specialty was guilt, emotional stories about sacrifice and hardship, reminders of how hard it was to raise 3 children alone after the divorce, conveniently forgetting their father had been present and contributing the whole time. Jerome used admiration, constantly praising her intelligence and success before sliding in requests. Brianna employed jealousy, making Naomi feel boring and old for working so much, then asking for money to fund the exciting life Naomi was supposedly missing. And her father? He was the silent partner, rarely asking directly but always present during the big requests, adding legitimacy with his approval. They'd worked her like a con, each playing their role perfectly. Naomi opened her investment accounts next. She'd started contributing to a 401k only 2 years ago, much later than she should have because there was never money left over. Her savings account, meant to hold an emergency fund, hovered around $12,000. Pathetic for someone with her income. She should have had hundreds of thousands in savings and investments by now. She pulled up a retirement calculator and entered what her financial situation should have been if she'd kept that $847,000 and invested it conservatively. With compound interest at her current age of 32, she'd be looking at a projected retirement fund of over $3 million by age 65. Instead, she had $87,000 in her 401k and negligible savings. The anger that had been building since yesterday crystallized into something cold and sharp. This wasn't just about money anymore. They'd stolen her future. They'd stolen years of her life, convinced her that their needs were more important than her own well-being, and laughed about it behind her back. At 9 a.m., Naomi started making phone calls. First, a lawyer specializing in financial elder abuse and family exploitation. The receptionist said they didn't typically handle adult children cases, but Naomi's calm recitation of the facts earned her an emergency appointment for that afternoon. Next, a therapist. She needed to process this and she needed to do it properly. The first available appointment was in 2 weeks. She took it. Then she called her office and used a week of her accumulated vacation time. She had months stored up, another consequence of always being too busy with family obligations to take real breaks. Her boss, surprised, immediately approved. "You've been burning the candle at both ends, Naomi. Take 2 weeks. You've earned it. 2 weeks." Naomi looked at her spreadsheet, her evidence, her documented betrayal. 2 weeks to build a fortress around her assets and her heart. 2 weeks to plan her exit from their lives. She opened her email and started drafting messages. Nothing to her family, they'd get silence for now. But to her bank, requesting new accounts be opened without any authorized secondary users. To her credit card companies, removing authorized users. To her investment advisor, requesting an emergency meeting. Every action felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. Around noon, Naomi finally showered and dressed. She looked at herself in the mirror, really looked. She was 32 years old. Beautiful as she'd been told countless times, though she'd never quite believed it. Her dark skin glowed even under the harsh bathroom lights. Her natural hair, usually pulled back in a tight bun for work, fell in curls around her face. Her eyes, though tired, held a new clarity. She'd lost 8 years to their lies. She wouldn't lose another day. The lawyer's office was downtown in a sleek high-rise. Attorney Mitchell Green turned out to be a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who listened to Naomi's story without interruption, taking notes on a legal pad. When Naomi finished, Mitchell sat back. "You have documentation of all this? Every transaction. Every text message request. I even have recordings from the last 3 months. They'd call me at work begging for money, and my phone automatically records work calls for compliance purposes." Mitchell smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who knew exactly how to win. "Good. Now we need to be clear about your goals. Are you looking to recover any of this money?" Naomi had thought about this. "I want them to face consequences. But I know realistically they've likely spent it all. What I want is protection, legal guarantees that they can't come after me, that they can't access my accounts, that I have a clear paper trail showing I've cut them off for cause. Consider it done. I'll draft cease and desist letters and get you set up with ironclad financial protections. Any joint accounts?" "No, thank God. But they all have my contact information, my work address, everything." "We can work with that. Let me ask you something, Naomi. How do you want this to end?" Naomi thought about the laughter in that kitchen. The casual cruelty of being reduced to a wallet with legs. "I want them to understand they can't use me anymore. I want them to face the reality of their own choices without my safety net. And then I want to never think about them again." Mitchell nodded. "Then that's what we'll do." 3 days into her investigative week, Naomi sat in a coffee shop across from a private investigator named Simone Taylor. She'd initially thought hiring a PI was excessive, dramatic even, but her lawyer had suggested it, and now Naomi understood why. Simone slid a folder across the table. "Your instincts were correct. There's more you don't know." Naomi opened the folder and her stomach dropped. Inside were financial records, property deeds, and business registrations that painted a picture she'd never imagined. Her family wasn't struggling. They were thriving. They just preferred thriving on her money while keeping their own. "Your mother," Simone began, pulling out a highlighted document, "owns 4 rental properties, not 3. The 4th was purchased last year, a beach house in South Carolina that she lists on vacation rental sites for $4,000 a week during peak season. It's booked solid every summer." Naomi stared at the listing photos. She recognized the furniture. Some of it was pieces her mother had claimed were family heirlooms, too precious to sell, even when she was supposedly desperate for money. The 3 other properties generate approximately $7,500 monthly in rental income after expenses. Your mother's total annual income from these properties is roughly $120,000. Yet she's claimed to you repeatedly that she's living on Social Security and the small pension from her late husband's estate. "That's my father." "He's not dead," Naomi said automatically, then realized how absurd it was to focus on that detail. "Wait, I thought they were divorced." "They are. Legally separated for 15 years but never actually divorced. For tax and benefit purposes." Simone pulled out another document. "Your father has a similar setup. He owns a series of sports memorabilia shops, 3 locations, quite profitable. He clears about $180,000 annually after expenses." The gambling debts, Naomi realized, had likely been real at some point. But instead of addressing the root problem, her father had simply ensured he'd never actually lose his own money. He gambled with hers. "Jerome," Simone continued, and Naomi braced herself. "He's the most interesting case. That IT consulting firm you found? It's a subsidiary of a larger tech company he co-founded with 2 partners. The company went public last year. His shares are currently valued at approximately $2.3 million. Naomi couldn't breathe. "He told me he was broke. Last month he said he couldn't make rent. He owns his house. Bought it outright 3 years ago." Simone showed her the deed. The rent money was probably for something else. Maybe his boat. Yes, he has a boat. Keeps it at a marina downtown. The betrayal somehow kept getting worse. Naomi had skipped purchasing a car she needed because Jerome had called desperate for rent money. She'd driven her dying Honda for another year, listening to it wheeze and praying it wouldn't break down on the highway during her commute. "And Brianna?" Naomi wasn't sure she wanted to know. "Trust fund from your maternal grandmother, as you discovered. Current value, $680,000. She's been receiving distributions since she turned 25. That was 4 years ago. She asked me for rent money last week. Her apartment is a luxury condo in the Arts District. The monthly cost is $3,200, and yes, she pays it herself from her trust. The money she asks you for is purely discretionary spending." Naomi's hands were shaking. She put them in her lap. "So all of them?" None of them actually needed my money? Correct. They wanted it because it allowed them to maintain their actual wealth while expanding their lifestyle. You were funding their upgrades while they preserved their assets. Simone's expression was professional sympathy. I've seen this before. Family financial abuse often follows this pattern. The victims are high earners with strong family loyalty. The abusers present false scarcity while hiding real abundance. Why? Naomi's voice cracked. If they all have money, why take mine? Why not just be honest? Because people don't like spending their own money when they can spend someone else's. Because they could. Because you let them. Simone's bluntness was actually helpful. And now you're going to stop them. Naomi looked at the folder. Evidence of betrayal. Proof of lies. But also something else. Proof that she didn't need to feel guilty anymore. They weren't struggling. They'd never been struggling. Every sob story, every emergency, every guilt trip had been a performance. There's one more thing, Simone said carefully. I found a group chat. She handed over her phone. Screenshots of a family group text. One Naomi had never been added to. The messages went back years. Her mother hit her up for the kitchen remodel. Used the roof story, she fell for it before. Jerome, I need a new car. Think she'll believe the business expansion angle again? Brianna, oh, she literally believes anything we tell her. It's almost too easy. The messages continued, detailing strategies, comparing notes on what worked, laughing about her gullibility. There were memes mocking her dedication to family. Jokes about her single status. Speculation about her salary and how much they could reasonably extract before she got suspicious. One message from her father stood out. Remember, the key is making her feel needed. She's desperate for family approval. As long as we give her that, she'll keep paying. Naomi handed the phone back. She felt oddly calm. The anger had transformed into something colder, clearer. This wasn't just exploitation. It was premeditated, organized, and sustained. They turned using her into a family project. I need all of this documented and stored securely, Naomi said. Multiple backups. Already done. You have copies in 3 separate cloud services and 1 physical drive. I also grabbed screenshots of their social media posts showing expensive purchases and vacations that coincided with times they claimed to be struggling financially. Naomi remembered those posts now. Her mother's photos from a European cruise last spring. The same month she'd called Naomi crying about not being able to afford her medicine. Jerome's brand new Mercedes posted to Instagram. The same week he'd asked for $5,000 for basic living expenses. She'd seen the posts and never connected the dots. She'd been too trusting, too willing to believe there were explanations. Too eager to be the hero who saved the day. What's your next move? Simone asked. Naomi gathered the folders. I'm going to secure everything they might try to access. Then I'm going to let them think everything is normal for a few more weeks while I prepare. And then. She smiled, and it felt like the first genuine smile she'd managed in days. Then I'm going to let them know exactly what I found and watch their world collapse. Revenge isn't usually healthy, Simone cautioned. This isn't revenge. This is consequences. They've spent 8 years facing none. It's time that changed. Naomi left the coffee shop with the evidence folder tucked securely in her bag. The afternoon sun was bright, the air cool and crisp. Fall had always been her favorite season. A time of change, of things ending and beginning. How fitting. She had 3 more days of vacation left. She'd spend them building walls they couldn't breach and foundations they couldn't shake. Because they'd taught her one valuable lesson through all of this. When people show you who they are, believe them. And they'd shown her exactly who they were. Now she'd show them exactly who she could be without them dragging her down. Naomi spent the next week in stealth mode, transforming her financial life with surgical precision. Every action was deliberate, documented, and designed to create an impenetrable barrier between her resources and their grasping hands. Her first stop was her primary bank. She met with a personal banking specialist named Terrence, who listened to her situation with professional concern, masking what she suspected was internal shock. I need to close all current accounts and open new ones, Naomi explained. Different account numbers, different access credentials, maximum security protocols. Terrence nodded, typing notes. We can set you up with fraud protection, verbal passwords for phone access, and alerts for any unusual activity. I also recommend setting up a separate account for what I call family interference protection. What's that? A minimal account that looks real but has almost nothing in it. If someone somehow gets your account number or tries to access your finances, they'll see that one. Appears to have your name and information, but it's essentially a decoy. Naomi like that. Do it. By the end of the meeting, her financial architecture had completely changed. New checking account, new savings account, new routing numbers. She set up automatic transfers from her paycheck to multiple high-yield savings accounts and investment portfolios. Terrence helped her create a detailed budget that prioritized her own future. Retirement contributions maxed out, emergency fund fully stocked, personal expenses comfortably covered. You're in good shape now, Terrence said as they finished. Your family would need court orders to access any of this, and even then with the documentation you have showing the pattern of exploitation, most judges would deny the requests. Next, Naomi met with her HR department and updated every emergency contact, every beneficiary, every authorized person on file. Where her mother's name had been listed as emergency contact, Naomi entered her lawyer's information. Where Jerome had somehow gotten himself added as a beneficiary on her life insurance policy, something she'd completely forgotten about, she removed him and designated a charity instead. The HR representative raised her eyebrows. Removing all family members is unusual. Are you sure? Completely sure. She changed her address to a P.O. box, arranged for mail forwarding, and set up fraud alerts on all her credit reports. She called every credit card company and requested new cards with new numbers. The old ones she ceremonially cut up in her hotel room, each snip of the scissors feeling like cutting threads that had bound her. Her lawyer, Mitchell, had prepared a comprehensive legal strategy. We're creating what I call a documentation fortress, she explained during their second meeting. Every piece of evidence is cross-referenced, every communication is archived. If they try to claim you abandoned them or failed to honor verbal agreements, we have proof that every transfer was accompanied by deliberate deception on their part. Mitchell had also drafted what she called preventive cease and desist letters, not to send yet but to have ready. Each letter, tailored to the specific family member, detailed the fraudulent claims, the evidence Naomi possessed, and the legal consequences of any further contact or harassment. When you're ready to cut them off, we'll send these via certified mail. It creates a paper trail showing they were officially notified and chose to violate it if they continue contact. Makes any future restraining orders much easier to obtain. What about them trying to claim I owe them money? Naomi asked. Could they say the transfers were loans? Not without documentation. And we have all your notes showing each transfer was in response to their claimed emergencies and needs. Adult children have no legal obligation to financially support their parents or siblings in most states. Even if they tried to claim some kind of contract, the evidence of fraud would invalidate it. Naomi felt the knot in her chest loosening. She was protected. She was safe. She spent an afternoon setting up new social media accounts and deactivating old ones. Her family had tags on her locations, access to her posts, and had used information from her social media to time their requests. She realized now that whenever she posted about a work success or achievement, requests for money would follow within days. The new accounts were private, carefully curated, and included exactly 0 family members. Then came the harder emotional work. Naomi sat in her therapist's office. She'd found one who could see her quickly, and laid out everything. The betrayal, the evidence, the plan. Dr. Paige West, a no-nonsense woman with kind eyes, listened without interruption. When Naomi finished, Drive West asked, "What's your biggest fear about cutting them off?" "That I'm overreacting," Naomi admitted. "That I'm being cruel. That I'll regret it." "Let me ask you this. If a friend came to you with this exact situation, what would you tell them?" Naomi considered. "I'd tell them to run. I'd tell them they were being abused and exploited. Yet you're worried about being cruel to your abusers." The word landed hard. Abusers. They didn't hit me. Abuse isn't only physical. Financial abuse, emotional manipulation, psychological exploitation. These are all real forms of abuse. You're not overreacting. If anything, you've underreacted for 8 years. They spent the rest of the session working through Naomi's guilt, unpacking years of conditioning that had taught her family obligations superseded personal well-being. Drive West gave her homework. Write a letter to her younger self, explaining what she knew now. That night, in her hotel room, she'd extended her stay, not ready to return to her apartment yet. Naomi wrote the letter. "Dear 24-year-old me, that first request for money? Say no. The guilt you feel about having resources when they claim not to is manufactured. Their emergencies will never end because they're not real emergencies. They're opportunities to exploit your kindness. You are not responsible for fixing their lives. You are not required to sacrifice your future for their present. Love should not cost everything you have. The family you're desperately trying to earn approval from has already decided your worth, and they measured it in dollars. No amount of giving will ever be enough because they don't want your love, they want your money. Save yourself. Choose yourself. Build the life you deserve. You are enough, exactly as you are, without their validation. Love your future self. Naomi cried reading it back. Then she folded it carefully and put it in the folder with all her evidence. A reminder of why she was doing this. Over the next few days she started rebuilding. She joined a gym and actually went, something she'd never had time for before. She called old friends she'd neglected and started reconnecting. She researched hobbies she'd always wanted to try but never could because family obligations ate all her free time. She also started planning her physical exit. Her current apartment lease ended in 2 months. She'd been planning to renew, but now she researched new neighborhoods, places her family didn't know about. Somewhere she could start completely fresh. She found it on the 4th day, a beautiful loft apartment in a renovated warehouse district across town. Floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed brick, and most importantly, a security building with controlled access. The rent was higher than her current place but she could afford it. She'd always been able to afford better. She just hadn't let herself have it. Naomi put down a deposit and signed the lease. Move-in date, 6 weeks from today. Enough time to finish preparing to get everything in place. Her vacation week was ending and she'd need to return to work. But she felt ready now. Armed with legal protection, financial security, and a clear exit strategy, she could face her family's next attempts at manipulation with calm detachment. Because she knew something they didn't, the ATM was permanently out of service. They just hadn't gotten the memo yet. Returning to work felt like stepping back into normal life, except nothing was normal anymore. Naomi sat at her desk, staring at the same computer screen she'd looked at thousands of times before, but seeing it through different eyes. Everything looked the same but she had fundamentally changed. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Haven't heard from you in a while, honey. Everything okay?" The old Naomi would have felt immediate guilt and responded with apologies and explanations. The new Naomi recognized the message for what it was, a check-in to make sure the ATM was still operational. She waited 3 hours before responding with a simple, "Busy with work. Talk later." No apologies. No explanations. No openings for requests. The response was almost immediate. "Of course, sweetie. We're so proud of how hard you work. Your father's car broke down and the repair is going to be expensive. Could you help out? Just $2,000. There it was. The actual reason for the check-in. Naomi smiled at the predictability. Her father, who owned 3 profitable businesses and cleared $180,000 annually, apparently couldn't handle a $2,000 car repair. She waited until end of business day to respond, "Really swamped right now. Had some unexpected expenses myself. Can't help this time." Her phone immediately rang. Her mother. Naomi let it go to voicemail. The voicemail was a masterclass in manipulation. Worry about Naomi working too hard, concern about her not taking care of herself, gentle reminders that family takes care of family, and a carefully casual mention of how her father really needed that car for work and how hard it would be for him to manage without it. Naomi deleted it without responding. The texts escalated over the next few hours. Her mother. Jerome. Brianna. Even her father, whose text style was clearly dictated by someone else. Each message employed a different angle: guilt, obligation, concern, flattery. They were cycling through their greatest hits, trying to find the button that would make her comply. None of them worked anymore. Naomi knew the truth. Their concern was for her bank account, not her well-being. After 3 days of increasingly desperate messages, Naomi sent a group text to the family chat they'd finally added her to, probably realizing she might notice the exclusion. "Hey everyone, work has been incredibly demanding and I'm having to tighten my budget due to some unexpected financial obligations. Won't be able to help out with anything for a while. Hope you understand." The message was deliberately vague, giving them nothing concrete to argue against while establishing a clear boundary. The response was immediate and telling. Her mother called instead of texting, always a bad sign. Naomi answered on speaker while she organized her desk. "Naomi, honey, what's going on? What financial obligations?" "Just personal stuff, Mom. Nothing to worry about. But your father really needs help with that car repair. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. I understand, but I can't help right now." Silence on the line. Then in a cooler tone, "This isn't like you. What's really happening?" Naomi kept her voice pleasant. Nothing's happening. I'm just managing my own finances better. Isn't that responsible? Of course, but family comes first. You know we'd do the same for you. Would they? Naomi wanted to ask. When had they ever offered to help her? Every crisis had been one way. But she didn't take the bait. I'm sure Dad can figure out the car situation. He's always been resourceful. More silence. Then her mother's tone shifted to hurt. I don't understand this sudden change. Have we done something to upset you? The gaslighting was impressive. They'd done everything to upset her, but admitting she was upset meant explaining why, and Naomi wasn't ready for that confrontation yet. Nothing's wrong, Mom. I just need to focus on my own situation right now. But I have to go. Meeting starting. Naomi hung up before her mother could respond. Her hands were shaking slightly, but she felt good. That was the first time she'd ever said no without apologizing, without offering alternatives, without letting them manipulate her into compliance. Over the next 3 weeks, Naomi perfected the art of declining requests. She became a master of vague excuses and firm boundaries. Every request was met with some version of "can't help right now," or "going through a tight financial period myself," or "really need to focus on work." She watched their frustration mount from a safe distance. The messages became more frequent, more urgent, more manipulative. Brianna tried the jealousy angle, sending photos of her fabulous life and mentioning how nice it must be that Naomi had money to spare since she didn't have an exciting life to fund. Jerome attempted masculine bonding, calling her for just a chat, that inevitably turned into a request for investment in his latest venture. Her father's approach was silence, a punishment that had always worked before, making Naomi desperate to regain his approval. This time she welcomed it. Her mother cycled through every emotion: hurt, anger, confusion, guilt-tripping, even attempted bargaining. "If you help with this one thing, we promise not to ask again for 3 months." They'd never kept such promises before. Naomi didn't believe they'd start now. She documented everything. Every text, every voicemail, every attempted manipulation. She saved them in a dedicated folder, building evidence of their harassment. At work, Naomi threw herself into projects with renewed energy. Without the constant stress of family financial crises, she found her performance improving. Her boss noticed during their monthly one-on-one. "You seem different lately," he observed. "More focused. Everything okay?" "Everything's great, actually. Just got some personal situations sorted out." "Well, whatever you're doing, keep it up. The senior partners have noticed. We're considering you for the lead on the Morrison account." The Morrison account was huge, potentially career-defining. The old Naomi would have hesitated, worried about the time commitment and how it might impact her availability for family emergencies. The new Naomi didn't hesitate. "I'd be honored. When do we start?" As she left the meeting, her phone buzzed. "Jerome, emergency. Need $5,000 today. Business payroll crisis." Naomi pulled up the private investigator's report on her phone. Jerome's business was flush with cash. She could see the most recent quarterly statements. This emergency was either a fabrication or a problem of his own making, and either way, it wasn't her responsibility. She didn't respond at all. That evening she got a call from an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Naomi?" It was Brianna. "My phone died and I'm stranded. I need you to send money for a cab home. Just $100. "Where are you?" "Downtown. Can you just send it? My phone's about to die completely." Naomi could hear the lie. Brianna's voice was too clear, too calm for someone in crisis. If her phone was dying, why hadn't she called from a friend's phone first? "Call an Uber. They take credit cards." My wallet was stolen. That's why I need." "Then call the police to report the theft. They can help you get home." "Naomi, please." "I'm hanging up now. Good luck with your situation." Naomi ended the call and blocked the number. Within an hour, she received a furious text from her mother accusing her of abandoning Brianna in an emergency. Naomi checked Brianna's public Instagram. Her sister had posted a selfie from her apartment 20 minutes ago, clearly safe and sound. She screenshot it and sent it to her mother without comment. The response was delayed. "Then, she must have found another way home. But you should have helped." Naomi didn't respond. Each small victory felt monumental. Each boundary she held felt like reclaiming pieces of herself. She was learning to sit with the discomfort of their disapproval, to recognize that their anger at her saying no wasn't her responsibility to fix. Drive West had told her this would be the hardest part. The extinction burst, when the manipulation would intensify before they either gave up or escalated to a full confrontation. Naomi was ready for either outcome. Let them escalate. Let them show their true colors even more clearly. She had evidence, legal protection, and most importantly, she had clarity about who they really were. The wallet with legs was learning to walk away. By week 6 of Naomi's financial withdrawal, her family's attempts at manipulation had evolved from subtle to desperate. They were no longer pretending these were isolated requests. They sensed something had fundamentally changed and they didn't like it. It started with a family group text initiated by her mother. Family dinner this Sunday. Everyone needs to be there. Important discussion. Naomi stared at the message, recognizing it for what it was. An ambush. They'd realized individual approaches weren't working, so they were going for a united front. She thought about declining, but curiosity won out. She wanted to see what they'd try when cornered. "I'll be there," she texted back. Sunday arrived with unseasonably cold weather. Naomi dressed carefully, a simple but expensive outfit that projected confidence. She wore the pearl earrings she'd bought herself last week, the ones she'd almost put back because they seemed too extravagant. She didn't need to save that money anymore. It was hers to spend on herself. She arrived exactly on time, walking into the house that no longer felt like home. The smell of her mother's cooking filled the air, all of Naomi's favorites, she noticed. The manipulation started before she even took off her coat. Everyone was already seated in the living room. 4 against 1. Naomi took the single armchair, refusing to sit on the couch where they could box her in. "Naomi, honey," her mother began, her voice honey sweet. "We've been so worried about you." "No need to worry. I'm fine." "But you've been so distant lately," Brianna chimed in. "You never respond to messages anymore." "I've been busy with work. The Morrison account is demanding." "That's exactly what we want to talk about," Jerome said, leaning forward. "We're concerned you're prioritizing work over family." Naomi almost laughed. They'd always encouraged her to work harder, earn more, because more income meant more money for them. Now that the pipeline had shut off, suddenly they cared about work-life balance. "My work is important to me," she said evenly. "Of course it is," her father interjected. "We're proud of your success. But family should come first. We taught you that." "You did teach me that," Naomi agreed, letting the words hang with their double meaning. Her mother exchanged glances with the others before continuing. "The thing is, honey, we've noticed you've been refusing to help with family needs lately. Jerome really needed that money for payroll." "His business is profitable," Naomi interrupted. "I checked." Silence crashed through the room. Jerome's face flushed. "What do you mean you checked?" "I mean I looked into your business. It's doing quite well actually. Congratulations on going public, by the way. That must have been exciting." Jerome's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Her mother jumped in quickly. "Sweetie, I don't know where you're getting your information, but..." "The same place I got information about your rental properties, Mom. All 4 of them. And the vacation house in South Carolina. Beautiful place. $4,000 a week during peak season. That must bring in good money." Her mother went pale. Brianna stood up. "Have you been spying on us?" "I've been doing research on my own finances. Trying to understand where all my money went over the last 8 years. You'd be amazed what you can find with public records." "Now wait a minute," her father said, his voice taking on a hard edge. "You're making it sound like we did something wrong. We're your family. Family helps each other." "Help implies reciprocity," Naomi said calmly. "What you've been doing is exploitation." "That's a terrible thing to say." Her mother's hurt tone was perfectly calibrated, except Naomi had seen behind the curtain now. She knew it was performance. "I have text messages," Naomi continued. "A group chat I was never added to. Where you all discussed how to manipulate me, what stories would work best, how to maximize what you could get from me. Would you like me to read some of them?" The silence this time was absolute. Brianna sat back down. Jerome's face had gone from flushed to ashen. Her mother's hands trembled slightly. "How did you?" Jerome started. "That doesn't matter. What matters is that I know the truth. I know about your Mercedes, Jerome. About your boat. I know about Brianna's trust fund. About Dad's memorabilia shops. About all the lies, all the fake emergencies, all the manufactured crises designed to get money from me." Her father stood up. "You ungrateful." "Careful," Naomi interrupted, her voice sharp. "I have lawyers now. Very good lawyers. And they're very interested in words like fraud and financial exploitation. So choose your next words carefully." He sat back down. Her mother tried one more time, tears forming in her eyes. Naomi, honey, you're twisting things. Yes, maybe we didn't tell you everything about our situations, but we're still family. You can't just abandon us over some misunderstanding. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is 8 years of deliberate deception. $847,000 to be exact. Money that should have been my future, my security, my life. Instead, it funded yours while you kept your own wealth safe. You gave that money willingly, Brianna said, her voice defensive. We didn't force you. You lied to me. Every single time. That's called fraud, Brianna. And I have documentation of every lie, every fake emergency, every manipulation. What do you want? Jerome asked finally. Why are you telling us this now? Because I want you to understand that it's over. No more money. No more fake emergencies. No more manipulation. I'm done. You can't just cut off your family, her mother protested. Watch me, Naomi said, standing up. I came here today to tell you in person that I know everything. You're all financially secure, you always have been. You don't need my help and you never did. So figure out your own lives from now on. And if we don't accept this, her father challenged, then my lawyers will send formal cease and desist letters, and I'll pursue legal action for the fraud. I'd prefer not to do that, not for your sake, but because I'd rather spend my energy on my own life than on you. But I will if you force me to. She walked toward the door, then paused and turned back. You know what the saddest part is? I would have helped you if you'd been honest. If you treated me like family instead of an ATM. But you made a choice and now I'm making mine. Naomi, wait, her mother called, standing up. Let's talk about this. We can work something out. There's nothing to work out. Goodbye. Naomi walked out into the cold afternoon, leaving the door open behind her. She could hear them arguing before she even reached her car, blaming each other, panicking about what she might do. She drove away without looking back. Her phone started ringing within minutes. Her mother. Then Jerome. Then Brianna. Text messages flooded in, apologies, accusations, demands, guilt trips. She pulled over at a shopping center and blocked all their numbers. Then she called Mitchell, her lawyer. It's done. I told them I know everything. How did they react? Exactly as you'd expect. Denial, anger, manipulation. They'll probably try to contact me repeatedly. Forward everything to me. If they persist, we'll send the cease and desist letters. Are you okay? I'm perfect, Naomi said, and realized it was true. The confrontation she'd been dreading felt like liberation. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my day. They can figure out their own lives now. She hung up and sat in her car for a moment, feeling lighter than she had in years. Then she drove to the bookstore, bought 3 books she'd been wanting to read, treated herself to an expensive coffee, and spent the afternoon in a cozy cafe reading. Her phone buzzed occasionally with blocked number attempts and messages from relatives she barely knew. Clearly her family had started recruiting reinforcements. She turned off all notifications and kept reading. The wallet with legs was learning to walk wherever she wanted. 3 days after the confrontation, Naomi's lawyer sent the cease and desist letters via certified mail. Each family member would receive their own personalized version detailing the specific fraudulent claims they'd made, the evidence Naomi possessed, and the legal consequences of any further contact. Mitchell had called before sending them. Last chance to back out if you're having second thoughts. No second thoughts. Send them. They'll be delivered tomorrow. Expect escalation first. People don't like being held accountable. Mitchell was right. The escalation started within hours of the deliveries. Naomi tracked the certified mail receipts online. All 4 had been signed for by 2 p.m. on a Thursday. By 3 p.m. her work phone was ringing. By 4 p.m., someone was buzzing her apartment building's intercom. By 6 p.m., family members she'd spoken to maybe twice in her life were calling her from unknown numbers, trying to guilt her on her family's behalf. Naomi had prepared for this. She'd already briefed her building's security about potential harassment. She'd informed her office receptionist to screen all calls. She'd set her personal phone to automatically send unknown numbers to voicemail. The voicemails were a mix of rage, manipulation, and panic. Her mother's voice, thick with tears. How could you do this to us? We're your family. You're going to destroy us over money? I can't believe I raised such a selfish daughter. Jerome's message was angry. You really got lawyers involved? Over what? Some money between family members. You're going to regret this, Naomi. You can't treat people like this and expect no consequences. Brianna's was petulant. This is so dramatic. You're acting like we committed some crime. We're your family, not strangers. This is ridiculous and you know it. Her father's was brief and cold. You've made your choice. Don't come crying to us when you need something. Naomi forwarded every message to Mitchell without listening to them fully. Let her lawyer handle the legal implications. She had better things to do than engage with their manipulations. The social media attack started next. Brianna posted a long, carefully worded status about how sad it is when people value money over family, and how she was praying for family members who've lost their way. The post generated dozens of sympathetic comments from people who had no idea what was really happening. Naomi's phone buzzed with notifications. She'd been tagged in several posts by extended family members, all expressing concern about this family conflict and urging her to forgive and move forward. None of them knew the full story. None of them had asked for her side. She sent one mass text to all the relatives who'd contacted her. I appreciate your concern, but this is between me and my immediate family. I've set boundaries that I need respected. Thank you for understanding. Then she muted all those conversations and went back to her evening plans, a pottery class she'd signed up for. Something she'd always wanted to try but never had time for because family obligations always came first. The clay was cool and smooth under her hands. The instructor was patient and encouraging. For 2 hours, Naomi focused on nothing but the spinning wheel and the shape forming under her fingers. Her bowl was lopsided and amateur, but it was hers. She'd made it. No one had demanded it from her. No one would take it. She carried it home carefully, this imperfect creation, and set it on her kitchen counter where she could see it. A reminder that she was building something new. The harassment continued for 2 weeks. Her family tried everything, showing up at her office building, having relatives call claiming emergencies, even filing a wellness check with the police, claiming they were concerned about her mental state. The police visit was almost funny. 2 officers appeared at her door looking uncomfortable. We got a call expressing concern about your welfare, ma'am, the younger officer explained. Naomi invited them in, offered coffee, and calmly explained the situation. She'd cut off contact with financially abusive family members who were now harassing her in retaliation. She showed them her lawyer's contact information and the cease and desist letters. So you're okay? No one's holding you hostage or preventing contact. The older officer asked with a slight smile, clearly understanding what was happening. I'm completely fine. Better than I've been in years, actually. My family is just upset that I stopped giving them money. The officers documented that she was safe and of sound mind, wished her luck, and left. She later learned from Mitchell that the false wellness check could potentially be added to a harassment case if needed. After the police visit failed, her family tried the nuclear option. They showed up at her apartment building en masse on a Saturday morning. All 4 of them, plus her Aunt Gloria and cousin Simone, standing in the lobby demanding to see her. Building security called up. Ms. Naomi, there are several people here claiming to be your family. They're quite insistent. They're not welcome. Please ask them to leave, and if they refuse, call the police for trespassing. Understood, ma'am. Naomi watched from her 8th-floor window as security escorted her family out of the building. Her mother was crying dramatically. Jerome was arguing. Brianna was recording on her phone, probably for more social media sympathy posts. Her father stood with his arms crossed, looking furious. She felt nothing watching them. No guilt, no sadness, no anger. Just a profound sense of relief that she'd gotten away. That afternoon, Mitchell called. I just received a call from a lawyer representing your family. They want to negotiate. Negotiate what? I don't want anything from them. They're claiming they want to make things right and restore the family relationship. I think they're realizing the legal threats are serious and they're trying to avoid potential consequences. What do you recommend? We meet with them, on our terms, in my office with everything documented. Let them make their case. Then you can decide how you want to proceed. Naomi agreed. The meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday. She walked into Mitchell's conference room to find her entire family seated on one side of the table with their lawyer, a nervous-looking man who kept adjusting his tie. Mitchell sat beside Naomi on the other side. Thank you all for coming, Mitchell began professionally. My client has agreed to this meeting to hear what you have to say. Naomi's mother immediately launched into her prepared speech. Naomi, sweetheart, we've all had time to think and pray about this situation. We realize there may have been some misunderstandings about financial matters, and we want to make things right. What specific misunderstandings? Mitchell asked before Naomi could respond. Well, her mother faltered. Perhaps we weren't always clear about our own financial situations. You mean you deliberately lied about being in financial crisis to fraudulently obtain money from my client? The family's lawyer jumped in. That's a harsh characterization. These were family members helping each other? With lies, Mitchell said flatly. We have documentation of false claims, concealed assets, and coordinated manipulation. Would you like me to present it? Silence. What we'd like, the family's lawyer tried again, is to reach an agreement that avoids any legal action. My clients are willing to apologize and commit to not requesting financial assistance in the future. In exchange for? Mitchell asked. A mutual agreement to drop any potential legal claims and maintain family privacy about these matters. So you want my client to sign away her right to pursue legal action for fraud in exchange for a promise you won't keep asking her for money? Mitchell's tone was incredulous. The same promise you've broken repeatedly for 8 years? We're trying to be reasonable here, Jerome said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Naomi finally spoke. You don't get to define reasonable. Reasonable would have been honesty from the beginning. Reasonable would have been respecting me as a person instead of treating me as a resource. Reasonable would have been not mocking me behind my back while taking my money. We never, Brianna started. Should I read the text messages? Naomi pulled out her phone. She's just our wallet with legs. Too busy proving herself to notice anything. She actually believes we care about her boring finance job. Should I continue? Her family had the grace to look ashamed, at least momentarily. Here's what's going to happen, Naomi continued. You're going to leave me alone. Completely. No calls, no texts, no social media posts, no showing up at my home or work. No recruiting relatives to contact me on your behalf. Nothing. And if we agree to this, her father asked, then I won't pursue legal action for the fraud. I won't try to recover the money you took. We didn't take anything, Jerome interrupted. You gave. Through fraud, Mitchell interjected. Which makes it theft. Shall we contact the district attorney's office? Jerome shut up. As I was saying, Naomi continued, I won't pursue recovery or press charges. But if any of you violate this agreement, if any of you contact me or harass me in any way, I'll pursue every legal option available. Mitchell has all the evidence organized and ready. One violation and we file. This is blackmail, Brianna protested. This is consequences, Naomi corrected. You want me to simply move on and forget 8 years of lies? Fine. But I move on alone. You don't get my money and my presence in your life. Choose one. Her mother tried once more. But we're family, Naomi. Families forgive. Families also don't exploit each other systematically for nearly a decade. You made your choices. Now live with them. The meeting ended with a formal agreement drafted by the lawyers. Her family would cease all contact. Naomi would not pursue legal action as long as they honored the agreement. Everyone signed. Walking out of the office, Mitchell asked, How do you feel? Free, Naomi answered. And she meant it. The first month without her family was the quietest Naomi's life had been in 8 years. No emergency calls. No guilt-laced texts. No manufactured crises requiring immediate financial intervention. The silence was strange at first, almost uncomfortable. She'd been conditioned to constant chaos. But slowly, the silence transformed into peace. Naomi moved into her new loft apartment on a sunny Saturday morning. She'd hired professional movers, a luxury she'd never allowed herself before, always opting for the cheapest option and doing most of the work herself. Watching someone else carry boxes felt indulgent and wonderful. The loft was everything she'd wanted. Sunlight streamed through the massive windows. The open floor plan gave her space to breathe. The building's security system made her feel safe. For the first time in years, she was creating a home that was entirely hers, with no obligation to house family members who showed up unannounced or store things for relatives who never retrieved them. She furnished it slowly, deliberately. Each piece was chosen because she loved it, not because it was practical or affordable or would impress anyone. The velvet sofa in deep emerald green. The dining table she'd seen in a boutique and fallen in love with. Art for the walls, real art from local galleries, not mass-produced prints. Her mother would have called it wasteful. Jerome would have suggested she invest the money instead. Brianna would have criticized her taste. Their opinions didn't matter anymore. Naomi threw a housewarming party, her first party in years. She invited colleagues from work, friends she'd reconnected with, people from her pottery class and the book club she'd recently joined. No family. The absence felt right. Her friend Taylor arrived early, carrying a bottle of expensive wine and a plant. This place is amazing, Naomi. I can't believe you've been hiding in that old apartment for so long. I wasn't hiding. I was. Naomi paused, considering. I was stuck. But I'm not anymore. As the evening progressed, filled with laughter and genuine connection, Naomi realized this was what life was supposed to feel like. Light, easy, fun. Without the undercurrent of obligation and manipulation that had poisoned every interaction with her family. Marcus, a kind software developer she'd met through friends, stayed after most guests had left, helping her clean up. They'd been on 2 casual dates, but nothing serious yet. Naomi was taking things slowly, learning to trust again. You seem happy, he observed, loading glasses into her new dishwasher. I am. For the first time in a long time. Want to talk about what changed? Naomi considered telling him the whole story but decided against it. That chapter was closed. I set some boundaries that I should have set years ago. It's made all the difference. He nodded, not pushing for details. She appreciated that about him. He respected her privacy, didn't demand explanations, seemed content to know her as she was now rather than excavating her past. Work had become more fulfilling too. Without the constant stress of family financial drains and manufactured emergencies, Naomi's performance had gone from excellent to exceptional. The Morrison account was a massive success, earning her recognition from senior partners and a substantial bonus. She invested the bonus money in a diversified portfolio, contributed to her retirement accounts, and yes, spent some on herself. A long weekend in Charleston, new professional wardrobe, and a premium gym membership. Each purchase felt like reclaiming ground she'd lost. Her therapist, Drive West, noted the changes during their sessions. You're different. More present. Less anxious. I didn't realize how much mental space they were taking up, Naomi admitted. Every interaction was exhausting because I was always on guard, waiting for the next request, the next crisis. Even when things were calm, I was bracing for impact. And now I can just exist. I can make plans without wondering if I'll have to cancel them. I can save money without guilt. I can spend money on myself without feeling selfish. Drive West smiled. That's not just recovery. That's growth. But cutting off her family wasn't without challenges. Extended relatives still occasionally tried to contact her, usually around holidays, urging her to forgive and forget, or be the bigger person. She'd crafted a standard response. I appreciate your concern, but this situation is more complex than you may understand, and my decision is final. Some relatives persisted, convinced they could mediate. Naomi blocked them too. She'd learned that people who didn't respect her boundaries didn't deserve access to her life. The hardest moment came 6 weeks into her new life. Naomi was at the grocery store when she saw her mother in the produce section. For a moment, their eyes met across the display of apples. Her mother's face crumpled, and Naomi felt a wave of conditioned guilt. Then she remembered the group chat. The mockery. The calculated manipulation. The wallet with legs. Naomi turned and walked down a different aisle without acknowledging her. When she glanced back, her mother was gone. That night she cried, not from regret, but from grief for what she'd never actually had. She'd lost her family, but the truth was she'd never had them, not really. What she'd lost was the illusion of family, and that was worth mourning even as she celebrated its absence. It's okay to grieve, Drive West told her in their next session. You can acknowledge that what happened was painful while still knowing you made the right choice. Naomi started volunteering at a financial literacy nonprofit, teaching young women about money management and protecting themselves from financial exploitation. She found purpose in helping others avoid the trap she'd fallen into. Her story, anonymized but honest, resonated with many participants. One young woman, no more than 23, approached her after a workshop. My boyfriend keeps asking to borrow money. He always says he'll pay me back, but he never does. Your presentation made me realize I'm not being supportive, I'm being used. Naomi helped her create a financial plan and set boundaries. Watching the young woman walk away with renewed confidence felt like transforming her pain into something valuable. 3 months after cutting off her family, Naomi ran into an old family friend at a coffee shop. Linda, her mother's best friend for decades, looked uncomfortable but approached anyway. Naomi, I heard what happened. Your mother's been devastated. I'm sure she has, Naomi said neutrally. Don't you think you're being a bit harsh? I know families can be difficult, but completely cutting them off seems extreme. This was the moment Naomi had been preparing for, the well-meaning but uninformed interference. Linda, I appreciate your concern, but you don't have the full picture. What happened wasn't a simple family disagreement. It was systematic financial exploitation that cost me nearly $1 million in 8 years of my life. Linda's eyes widened. $1 million, But your mother said it was just some misunderstanding about loans? They weren't loans. They were fraudulent claims of financial emergencies while they were all financially secure. They lied to me repeatedly and mocked me for believing them. Naomi kept her voice calm but firm. I understand my mother has shared her version of events, but I have documentation, legal evidence, and recordings that tell a very different story. I didn't know. Most people don't. That's how this kind of abuse works. It's hidden, and the abusers present themselves as victims when they face consequences. I'm not asking you to choose sides, but I am asking you to respect my decision. Linda nodded slowly and left without pressing further. Naomi hoped she'd tell her mother what she'd learned, but she knew better than to expect it would change anything. As autumn deepened into winter, Naomi's new life solidified. She had a routine that nourished rather than drained her. Morning runs, work she excelled at, evenings spent on hobbies and friendships, weekends free for whatever she wanted. The absence of family drama created space for genuine joy. She started dating Marcus more seriously. He was patient with her boundaries, understanding when she explained, in broad terms, that she'd recently ended contact with her family. My family's complicated too, he shared over dinner one night. I get it. The families we're born into aren't always the families we need. That phrase stuck with her. Naomi was building a chosen family now, friends who valued her for herself, not her wallet. Colleagues who respected her boundaries. Communities where she felt safe being authentic. The hardest question came from her young cousin, Simone, who was 17 and had apparently not gotten the memo about no contact. She texted Naomi, "My mom says you abandoned us. What really happened?" Naomi thought carefully before responding. Simone had always been a good kid and she didn't deserve to be caught in the middle. I didn't abandon anyone. I set boundaries with people who were taking advantage of me financially. If you ever want to talk about it when you're older and can understand the full situation, I'm open to that. But for now, this is between me and my immediate family. Simone responded, "That's fair. I'm sorry whatever happened hurt you." That small kindness from a teenager meant more than Naomi expected. Maybe not everyone in her biological family was lost to her. Maybe someday when Simone was an adult and could form her own opinions, there could be a relationship there. But even if not, Naomi was okay. She was building something better than what she'd lost. Winter gave way to spring, and Naomi felt like she was blooming alongside the city. 6 months had passed since she'd cut contact with her family, and the transformation in her life was remarkable. The Morrison account had been such a success that the firm promoted her to executive vice president, a position that came with a corner office, a significant raise, and a seat at the partners' table. The old Naomi would have immediately thought about how much more she could send home. The new Naomi thought about how she'd invest in her own future. Her financial advisor, Craig, had become a regular part of her quarterly planning. He'd helped her create a comprehensive wealth-building strategy that made up for the 8 years she'd lost. "You're in remarkable shape," he told her during their spring meeting. "With your current savings rate and investment strategy, you'll hit your early retirement goal by 55, maybe sooner." Early retirement. The concept felt like a fantasy even though it was mathematically sound. Naomi had spent so long in survival mode that planning for abundance felt foreign. She'd also hired a financial planner who specialized in what they called prosperity psychology, helping people who'd experienced financial trauma rebuild a healthy relationship with money. "You keep apologizing for spending money on yourself," the planner, Tasha, observed during one of their sessions. "You bought yourself a professional massage after a 90-hour work week, and you started our session today by justifying why you deserved it." Naomi hadn't even realized she was doing it. Habit, I guess. It's more than habit. It's deep conditioning that your needs come last, that spending money on your own comfort is selfish. We need to reprogram that. They worked on what Tasha called guilt-free spending goals, budget categories specifically for things that brought Naomi joy without any productive justification. Spa days. Books she'd never read but wanted to own. Concerts. Travel. Things that were purely for pleasure. Naomi's spring trip to Paris was the first test. She'd always wanted to visit but had convinced herself it was frivolous. Now she spent 10 days wandering museums, eating incredible food, and doing absolutely nothing productive. It was glorious. She sent no postcards to family members because there were no family members to send them to. The absence of obligation made the trip sweeter. Marcus had wanted to come, but Naomi had insisted on going alone. "I need to prove to myself I can do this, enjoy life on my own terms for my own pleasure." He'd understood, which was one of many reasons their relationship was working. He gave her space to heal while remaining consistently present when she needed him. They'd defined their relationship as serious but not rushed. Both had been burned before and were taking their time. When Naomi returned from Paris, she found her pottery skills had improved enough to move to an intermediate class. Her lopsided bowls had evolved into pieces she was genuinely proud of. She'd even sold 2 pieces at a local artisan fair, though the money wasn't the point. The creation was. "You're finding yourself," Drive West observed during their now monthly therapy sessions. "That's what happens when you're not spending all your energy on other people's drama." "I didn't realize how little I knew about myself," Naomi admitted. "I built my entire identity around being the responsible one, the successful one, the one who took care of everyone else. Without that, who am I? Who do you want to be?" Naomi had been thinking about that question a lot. She'd started a journal, something she'd never had time for before, and found herself writing about dreams she'd long suppressed. Opening her own financial consulting firm. Writing a book about financial literacy for young women. Traveling more. Maybe fostering dogs. Learning to paint. Taking a cooking class. None of these dreams involved her family. That absence felt healthy rather than sad now. At work, Naomi had become a mentor to several younger women in the firm. She recognized herself in them, ambitious, hardworking, often struggling with work-life balance and family obligations. She shared her story when appropriate, always emphasizing the importance of boundaries and self-preservation. One mentee, Jordan, confided that her family constantly pressured her for money. "They say I'm selfish for wanting to save for a house instead of helping them. They say family comes first." "Family does come first," Naomi agreed. "But you are part of your family too. Your needs matter. Your future matters. If they can't respect that, they're not treating you like family, they're treating you like a resource." She watched Jordan's face shift, recognizing the same awakening she'd experienced. It felt good to help someone else escape the trap earlier than she had. Naomi's friend group had expanded significantly. She joined a women's professional networking group, a book club that actually read the books, and a hiking group that explored trails every weekend. For the first time in her adult life, her calendar was full of activities she'd chosen for herself rather than obligations to others. Taylor, her closest friend now, sometimes asked about her family. "Do you ever think about reaching out? Seeing if anything's changed?" "No," Naomi answered honestly. "I spent 8 years hoping they'd change, trying to earn their genuine love and respect. They showed me clearly that they never will. I'm not interested in giving them another chance to prove it again." "Fair enough. I just want to make sure you don't have regrets." "My only regret is not leaving sooner." That summer, Naomi took another big step. She bought a small cabin in the mountains. It had been a foreclosure, needed work, but the bones were good. She poured money and effort into renovating it into a personal retreat. Every weekend she could spare, she drove up there and worked on it, painting, refinishing floors, building a deck. Marcus helped with the heavier renovations. They worked side by side in comfortable silence, the kind that came from genuine compatibility rather than forced togetherness. "You're building a really beautiful life," he commented one evening as they sat on the newly finished deck watching the sunset. "I'm trying. It's still weird sometimes living for myself." "It suits you." Naomi had also started therapy with a specialist in family estrangement. The regular sessions with Drive West had been crucial for her initial healing, but she wanted to dig deeper into the specific challenges of permanently cutting off biological family. "Society tells us that family abandonment is one of the worst things we can do," the specialist, Dr. Morrison, explained. "But that narrative is designed around functional families. It doesn't account for abuse, exploitation, or toxicity." "I still get people telling me I'll regret it on my deathbed," Naomi admitted. "Will you?" Naomi thought about that honestly. "No. I think I'd regret spending my entire life being used more than I'll ever regret standing up for myself." The therapy helped her work through the last remnants of guilt. She learned to recognize manipulation attempts even from strangers who heard partial versions of her story. It developed scripts for dealing with nosy relatives and well-meaning friends who didn't understand estrangement. Most importantly, she learned that her choice was valid even if others didn't understand it. She didn't need anyone's permission to protect herself. 1 year after cutting contact, Naomi celebrated the anniversary quietly. She looked at her life spreadsheet, a habit she'd maintained, and saw the stark difference. Her retirement accounts were flourishing. Her savings were robust. Her investments were diversified. Her debt was paid off. All in 12 months of keeping her money for herself. But more than that, she looked at her life satisfaction metrics, another thing she'd started tracking. Happiness levels, significantly up. Stress levels, dramatically down. Sense of purpose, higher than ever. Quality of relationships, exponentially better. She'd lost a family but gained a life. The math was clear. 2 years had passed since Naomi had walked out of that family dinner. 2 years of building, growing, healing, and thriving. She stood in her corner office on the 40th floor, looking out over the city she'd conquered, and felt nothing but contentment. Her consulting firm, Harper & Associates, named after her grandmother who'd encouraged her education, had officially launched 6 months ago. She'd left the corporate world on excellent terms, taking several major clients with her and building a practice focused on ethical financial planning and wealth protection, especially for women. The business was thriving beyond her projections. She'd hired 3 associates, rented a beautiful office space, and developed a reputation as a straight-shooting advisor who told clients what they needed to hear, not what they wanted to hear. Her specialization in family financial boundaries had become her signature offering. She'd even been featured in Forbes for her work helping people protect their assets from exploitative relatives. The article never mentioned her personal story by name, but anyone who knew her history could read between the lines. Naomi's personal life had flourished too. She and Marcus had moved in together 6 months ago, a careful decision that they'd both approached with eyes wide open. Their relationship was built on mutual respect, clear communication, and genuine partnership. He never asked for money. He paid his share. He supported her business without trying to control it. "You know what I love about you?" he told her recently. "You're the most self-sufficient person I've ever met, but you let me in anyway. That takes courage after what you went through." Her cabin in the mountains had become a full renovation project that she'd completed herself. Well, with Marcus's help and professional contractors for the complicated bits. But the design was hers. The vision was hers. It was her sanctuary and she'd built it with money she'd earned and kept. Last month, she'd added solar panels. Next month, she was installing a hot tub. Because she could. Because she wanted to. Because there was no one to tell her it was wasteful or to suggest that money could be better spent on someone else's needs. She'd published a book, The Wallet Rebellion, Financial Self-Defense Against Family Exploitation, that had quietly become a bestseller in personal finance circles. The book detailed the psychological tactics of financial abuse, legal protections available, and step-by-step guides for extracting oneself from toxic family financial relationships. Readers reached out daily, sharing their own stories. Naomi had created a support forum where people navigating family financial estrangement could connect. It had grown to thousands of members. She turned her pain into a resource that helped others escape similar situations. Taylor hosted a celebration dinner for the book's success at an upscale restaurant downtown. Naomi's chosen family gathered around the table. Marcus, several close friends, her business partners, Drive West who'd become a friend beyond therapy, and several members of her hiking group. To Naomi, Taylor raised her glass. "Who turned betrayal into brilliance and taught the rest of us that it's okay to put ourselves first." They toasted. Naomi felt tears prick her eyes but held them back. These were her people. The ones who'd never asked her for anything except her authentic self. The ones who celebrated her success instead of calculating how much they could extract from it. After dinner, as people began to leave, Marcus pulled her aside. "There's something I wanted to run by you." Naomi tensed slightly, old instincts, but his face was excited, not manipulative. "My company's opening a West Coast office. They want me to head it up. It would mean relocating to San Francisco for at least 3 years. "That's amazing," Naomi said, genuinely happy for him but mentally calculating what this meant for their relationship. "The thing is, I don't want to do it if it means losing you. But I also don't want to ask you to uproot your whole life for my career. So I'm putting it out there, what if we both went? Your business is remote capable, you've been talking about expanding anyway, and San Francisco has a huge market for your services." Naomi considered. 2 years ago, she would have dismissed the idea immediately. Stability had been everything because chaos had been her normal. But now, "I've never lived anywhere but this city," she said slowly. "I know. It's a huge ask. Take time to think about it." "I don't need time." Naomi felt a smile spreading across her face. "Let's do it. Let's go." Marcus's face lit up. "Really? Really? I've spent too much of my life being afraid to take risks because I was busy taking care of everyone else's problems. This feels like an adventure. And I've learned that adventures are worth having." They'd move in spring. Naomi started planning immediately, researching San Francisco's financial market, identifying potential office spaces, connecting with West Coast business networks. The excitement was intoxicating. But first there was one more piece of business to handle. 3 weeks before the planned move, Naomi was grocery shopping when she rounded a corner and literally bumped into her sister. The collision was unavoidable, and for a moment they stood face to face. Brianna had changed. She looked older, harder. The designer clothes were gone, replaced with off-brand pieces that looked worn. Her hair, usually professionally styled, was pulled back in a simple ponytail. "Naomi," she said, and there was no warmth in her voice. "Brianna." They stood in awkward silence. Then Brianna laughed bitterly. "You look good. Really good. New clothes, new confidence. Guess cutting us off worked out great for you." "It did," Naomi said simply. "We lost the house, you know. Mom's rental properties were over-leveraged, and without your contributions she couldn't make the payments. She's living in a one-bedroom apartment now." Naomi felt nothing. She owned multiple properties and had rental income. If she lost them, that's a consequence of her financial decisions. Jerome's business went under. Turns out he didn't actually know how to run a company without someone bailing him out constantly. "Also not my problem." Brianna's face reddened. "Dad's sick. He needs expensive medical treatment. He has 3 profitable businesses and presumably health insurance. I'm sure he'll figure it out." "You're really not going to help? Even with Dad sick?" Naomi looked at her sister and saw a stranger. Whatever connection they'd once had, or whatever connection Naomi had imagined they had, was long gone. "Brianna, for 8 years I helped with every crisis you manufactured. I gave you nearly $1 million based on lies. I sacrificed my future for your present. And you mocked me for it." Naomi kept her voice calm. "So no, I'm not going to help. Helping would require me to trust that any of what you just told me is true, and I don't. I know Dad has assets. I know you all have resources you've hidden or mismanaged. Figure it out like adults instead of looking for another person to exploit. We're family." "No, we're related. Family doesn't treat each other the way you treated me. You made your choices. These are the consequences. Now move, please. You're blocking the pasta." Brianna stepped aside, her mouth opening and closing. Naomi took what she needed from the shelf and walked away without looking back. Her hands were steady as she continued shopping. Her heart rate was normal. She felt no guilt, no doubt, no urge to rush back and apologize. She'd meant every word. At the checkout line she found herself smiling. That encounter, the final test of her resolve, had proven something important. She was fully healed. The guilt they'd conditioned into her was gone. The obligation she'd felt was extinct. She was completely, totally free. Moving day arrived with perfect weather. Naomi watched the movers load her carefully curated possessions into the truck. Everything she owned now she'd chosen deliberately. Nothing was a hand-me-down she'd accepted out of guilt. Nothing was a gift that came with strings attached. Marcus's hand found hers as they watched. No second thoughts? None. You. Not a single one. They drove west with their lives packed in a moving truck, the cabin rented to vacationers, and the city of her birth disappearing in the rearview mirror. Naomi felt light, unburdened, full of possibility. San Francisco welcomed them with fog and opportunity. Naomi's business took off immediately. The West Coast had plenty of wealthy individuals dealing with family financial complications, and her reputation preceded her. Within 3 months she had to hire 2 more associates. She and Marcus explored their new city together. They hiked in Marin. They ate dim sum in Chinatown. They attended concerts at the Fillmore. They built a life that was entirely theirs, with no ghosts from the past haunting them. One evening, sitting on their apartment balcony watching the sunset over the bay, Marcus asked, "Do you ever think about them? Your family?" "Sometimes," Naomi admitted. "But not with sadness or guilt anymore. Just curiosity about what they're doing. If they ever understood what they did wrong. If they changed." "Do you care if they changed?" "No. That's for them, not for me. My healing didn't require them to acknowledge what they did. It only required me to acknowledge it and act accordingly." She thought about the girl she'd been, eager to please, desperate for approval, willing to sacrifice everything for people who saw her as nothing more than a wallet with legs. That girl was gone. In her place was a woman who knew her worth, protected her boundaries, and built a life that reflected her values. Harper and Associates continued to grow. Naomi opened a second office in Portland. She hired a team of advisors who specialized in financial abuse cases. She partnered with domestic violence organizations to provide services to survivors. She turned her trauma into a mission. The book became a series. The forum became a non-profit organization. Her story, once a source of shame, became a testimony to the power of choosing yourself. 3 years after leaving her family, Naomi received an email from an unfamiliar address. Against her better judgment, she opened it. It was from her cousin Simone, now in college. "Hi Naomi, I hope you're well. I'm studying business and recently took a family finance course. We discussed financial exploitation, and I finally understood what must have happened between you and the rest of the family. I'm sorry I didn't get it before. I'm sorry for how they treated you. I hope you're happy wherever you are. You don't have to respond to this. I just wanted you to know that someone in the family understands now and thinks you made the right choice. Simone." Naomi read the email twice then wrote back, "Thank you for reaching out, Simone. I'm happy. Very happy. I hope college is going well for you. If you ever want to talk about financial boundaries or business ethics, I'm here. Take care of yourself. Naomi." It wasn't reconciliation with her family, but it was a small connection with someone who'd been caught in the middle. Naomi was okay with that. She'd learned that relationships didn't have to be all or nothing. She could have boundaries while remaining open to people who respected them. 5 years after the day she'd overheard them call her, "just our wallet with legs," Naomi stood in a ballroom accepting an award for her contributions to financial literacy and protection of exploitation victims. The audience included clients she'd helped, associates she'd mentored, and Marcus, who beamed at her from the front row. In her acceptance speech, she talked about the importance of knowing your worth, not just financial worth but human worth. About the courage it takes to walk away from people who don't value you. About building a life on your own terms instead of living by someone else's definitions of obligation. "I spent years measuring my value by how much I could give to others," she told the audience. "It took me 8 years and nearly $1 million to learn that my value wasn't in my wallet. It was in me. In my intelligence, my integrity, my capacity for genuine love and connection. Once I understood that, everything changed." The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Afterward, dozens of people approached her, sharing their own stories of family financial abuse, thanking her for speaking out, asking for advice. Each conversation reminded Naomi why the pain had been worth it. She'd transformed suffering into service. She'd turned betrayal into a blueprint for others to follow. She'd taken the worst experience of her life and made it mean something. That night, back in their Bay Area apartment, Marcus proposed. The ring was simple and beautiful, no diamonds, just her favorite stone, turquoise. "I want to build a life with you," he said. "Not because I need you to take care of me or fix me or fund me, but because you make me want to be better, and I hope I do the same for you." "You do," Naomi said, sliding the ring on. And yes. They married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the cabin in the mountains, the place Naomi had built with her own hands and money. The guest list included chosen family only. No biological relatives attended. No one sent gifts with strings attached. No one calculated what they could gain from the union. It was perfect. Standing on her deck in her wedding dress, looking at the people who'd chosen to love her for who she was rather than what she could provide, Naomi felt complete. She'd lost a family but found herself. She'd given up people who used her and gained people who valued her. She'd walked away from exploitation and toward empowerment. The wallet had learned it was never just a wallet. It was a person, worthy of respect, capable of love, deserving of happiness. And that person had built a beautiful life, one boundary at a time. As the sun set over her mountain sanctuary, Naomi raised a glass with her chosen family and toasted to the future. To freedom. To authenticity. To living well. Because living well wasn't just the best revenge. It was the best life.